Hey, I'm Dante, one of the team members here at Veracity Hill, and today we're doing something of a social experiment. You see, our tagline at Veracity Hill is disentangling complex theology. Well, that's all fine and dandy when you get the opportunity to do your prep work, when you can do homework, when you can provide footnotes to your presentation defending the faith. But what does apologetics look like when you're talking to the proverbial man on the street? What does it look like when you're talking to someone you don't know at all? We want to kind of test that environment with our resident apologist, Dr. J. So today we're doing a blind interview with Dr. J and someone he's never met before and knows nothing about. And we want to see, how does Dr. J get into a conversation talking about worldview? And how does he present his own thoughts and extract kind of the thoughts from the person he's talking to? So I really want to hear back from you. I want to hear whether you guys think this is a good idea or not. Should we do more of these? And did Dr. J do a good job? Or was he trash? Please comment back. I'll see you on the flip side of this conversation, and I hope you enjoy it.
So, Chris, you let me know when you're ready.
We're going. We're recording.
Okay.
So you guys can start talking.
All right. Let me just say a quick first thing here. So this is the first blind interview that we're doing. And basically the name of the game is that I know nothing of my guest. I'm looking forward to learning more about this person, who they are, what they do, what interests them. And what's great about this is it's an opportunity to learn from people that we might not otherwise reach out to. So I don't schedule these interviews. They're scheduled by my team here at Veracity Hill, and it's a way of reaching across maybe political aisles, perhaps across religious differences. I have basically here on this stand, I've got no computer, I can't research anything. I have some prepared template questions, a blank notepad with pen, and my phone, which has the world clock, so I make sure I'm keeping track of the time. So I want to thank our guest for joining us for this first blind interview. And of course, guest, you're welcome to ask me questions. I'm not sure how much Dante, I think he's the one who scheduled it, told you about me. So we'll just have a nice conversation. And my first question is, what is your first name?
Okay, so hi again, and thank you for having me. I would like to thank Dante as well. But yes, to get to your question, my name is Enei.
And could you spell that?
It's Enej.
Enei. Okay. Well, nice to meet you, Enei. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, and you are again, your name Dante has told me, but I
Sure.
don't want to make a mistake and call you something you're not.
So my name is Kurt, and my last name is Jaros. And I do hold a PhD, so if it's easier, just Dr. J sometimes works easier for people, but you're welcome to call me Kurt.
Nice to meet you, Kurt, and Dr. J sounds it sounds nice. So
It's nice and simple. And for people who are basketball fans of the NBA, there was a player back a few decades ago named Julius Erving, and his nickname was Dr. J, so basketball fans will know that. Ine, so let me ask you, I hear an accent from my relative position. Of course, I probably have an accent to you. So are you, you don't, and forgive me if I'm mistaken, but you don't sound like you're from the United States, or at least originally. Is that correct?
correct, I definitely am not from the US and from any of the Americas. I am from the European Union or Europe, and more specifically from Slovenia.
Ah, from Slovenia. And do you live in the United States today, or are you currently talking to me from Slovenia?
That's correct.
That's awesome. Well, great. Hey, it's nice to meet someone from across the pond, and you know what? Golly, there's a lot of contemporary happenings in Slovenia, well, and in Europe right now on a global basis, and so I can only imagine what that must be like for someone like you living in Eastern Europe. Okay, so wow, Slovenia. All right, and tell me, what are your interests? What do you like to do? What are your hobbies?
Currently, I'm actually in let's say time in my life where I'm starting to rediscover again my hobbies, because I'm a student, and I've devoted most of my free time during the last 6 years, I think, to studying, and a lot of sacrifices of my free time were made. And so I am starting to rediscover maybe past hobbies and finding new ones. So, like, I'm trying to get again into gaming, but
Okay.
I'm sort of finding out that it's not for me that much anymore. I still enjoy, and even more enjoy, reading, not just how would you call it, the literature that's not like academic, but so like novels and
So fiction?
fiction, sort of. Yeah. So not just fiction, but I also very much enjoy academic works, mainly from fields of uh, philosophy, sociology, psychology, and the like, and history, of course. Yeah.
Great, the humanities.
Yes, that's where I also am from that field, those fields.
Great. Okay, so you said you've recently been a student. So was your major in the humanities? Do you have what we would call an undergraduate or graduate degrees?
My master's is the same, or similar to my bachelor's, which was in sociology and history, and this time my master's is in history and sociology, but with we call it like a pedagogical um, sort of undertone. So I'm studying to be or I'm finishing my studies to become a teacher.
Okay, so what interests you? Let me ask you sort of a broad question. What interests you about sociology and history?
So history was one of my main interests for a long time. I've actually wanted to be Indiana Jones when I was little. So sort of archaeological and historical fanatic in my youthful days, or relatively youthful, since I still am classified in the youth, how would you call it, like segment of.
Young adult, perhaps? Yeah. How old are you?
Actually, I'm right in the liminal space of 26. So I am officially, uh, according to some classifications, now an adult.
Okay. What sort of periods of history do you enjoy? Do you have a specialty more in, say, ancient history? Do you look at more modern, contemporary history? I mean, for some people, even the 1990s was history. How far back do you go? Do you have one interest greater than other in the historical period? Which or which cultures fascinate you the most?
So, since we in the West are quite Eurocentric, I am still quite, let's say, focused on European or the Western type of history. Although during my studies, I did partake in 2 courses of history of Japan, which was amazing, and the lecturer, Luca Zuliberg, was a master, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, and I also um, partook in a lot of these courses from anthropology and ethnology. So I do have some grasp also of different cultures from across the world, but my main focus is Europe and the US. And also time-wise, I am my bachelor's degree was in modern history, so that's where I also most of my interests come from. But I still very much enjoy reading about, finding out about a lot of things from different periods, especially, for instance, medieval period. I'm a big medieval fanatic, so still, but yeah, mainly my academic focus is modern period. So from the, let's say, from the 1900s, or from 1900 and until today. Actually, if I even consider the latest years as
Yes.
history, or at least historic and soon to be.
Yes, yes. Like I had said, some people consider the 1990s even as history, but even more appropriately, as you said, I mean, yesterday is history. And so, the events that we view today as contemporary, soon enough and quickly will find their way in the history textbooks. And people will be writing books about these events. Okay, so you said you're a medieval fanatic, medieval era. So tell me, what is it? What excites you about that medieval time?
I definitely the way a lot of things from medieval life that differs from today's way of life. Not only the feudal relations, but all that comes with it, all of the culture. And especially, I really like castles, so whenever I go somewhere, I'm like looking on Google Maps, trying to find the best and the most mysterious castles that there are in each area that I visit. For instance, in the beginning of September, I was in France, and that was just amazing to me, because it's so rich with history from the medieval period, and even from the Bronze Age until today. So it was heaven for me.
That's great. I'm glad you had that opportunity. So one of the things that I enjoy about history is also the architecture. In America here, what we view as history is, something like from the 1800s. If you had a building from the 1800s, that's ooh. But over in Europe, I mean, if you have a building that's 1,000 years old or 1,500 years old, I mean, that's what's really impressive, that some buildings have been around that long. And so that's always been of interest to me and my wife. So let me transition, if I may, using some of those historical buildings. So ancient churches, medieval churches are around in Europe, cathedrals as they're commonly called. And I'm wondering, when you are, I shouldn't say on holiday, but because it might be an academic trip for someone like yourself, do you explore the what I view as the beauty of ancient cathedrals?
Yes, definitely. I'm also, along with castles, cathedrals are the thing that I visit the most when I go to like an old city center in a new city or town that I visit. I definitely enjoy churches. Yeah.
So, as you've studied history and you've even been interested in cathedrals, let me ask you, and religion is a part of European history, sometimes deeply so. What do you think of Christianity as a world religion?
Well, I am officially a Christian, so I was baptized when I was little, and I even went through the two other um, what do you call them, as a Catholic, of course, because Catholicism is predominant in Slovenia. So I got all of the sacraments. Was it the sacraments? Am I using the correct term?
Yes, that's right.
So I got 2 of those also as a kid, and then I sort of personally I strayed away from this religion, but as a religion, as Catholic or Christianity as such, I have no feeling towards it. I view
Okay.
it as a phenomenon,
Okay.
as a sociological or a societal phenomenon. I don't know if that answers your question precisely, but you can add some sub questions if you
Sure.
would like something more specific.
Yeah, no, thanks. So you had been baptized in the religion when you were younger, but you've since gone away from that. So you currently, and forgive me if correct me if I'm wrong. So you wouldn't tell people that you are a Christian. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. I would answer the same way I told you. So I am officially a Christian, but I do not view myself as Christian.
Interesting. So it's for you. Would you say that it's a cultural label then, so that you sort of view yourself as participating in the sociological phenomenon, but that you don't think what the Bible describes really happened? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere along those lines. I don't view it any other way, as it's just a group religion to me, one of many others.
Okay.
And if that's where we're going, like, I do not believe. Well, I do know some of the stories or the things described in the Bible did actually historically happen. I know. Well, I don't know, but I've been told in my during my studies in history, for instance, Roman history, that, for instance, Jesus was a real person, historical person. But that does not mean that everything from the Bible is true or is happened the way it was described.
Yes, so that's an interesting point you make. So some of the things happened. Jesus was a historical person. Maybe the events that were written about that Jesus did, maybe they didn't happen that way. So that's we could also look at Old Testament events as well, and even within Christian circles there are debates. Let me clarify. Even within people who identify and as a Christian and follow Jesus because they think it's 100% true, there's still debates over whether such and such happened. For example, there are debates over the age of the earth. Did it happen in 7 days or over thousands of years, millions of years? There's debates over how we should interpret the first couple chapters of Genesis. Is it history or is it ancient poetry, for example? So there are discussions even within what I would call evangelical Christians on those subjects. So you've come to the position that it's sort of a group religion, and could you guide me through some of that process? Has that been in part because you've seen other cultures and how they have their own religions? Is that a big part of your assessment?
Definitely finding out about other religions and how they view things, or how they interpret the world and higher power. so finding out about these things was part of my molding into what I think today, and also finding out about past events from history. And I would also like to comment maybe what I said before, or what you said before, because to me, and this is what I believe quite a lot, because I think it was Maslow. He's a historian. I don't know. Have you heard about Maslow?
The name rings a bell.
So he's a historian that I only recently found out about, and he really stresses the point that all of history is actually story. So it's a story that historians historians are only able to interpret the past. They can never really find out the real story, or the real story that's the exact thing that happened. All of our histories, all of what we read about the past is just, it's precisely that. It's stories about the past. And I also view, I think, religion in the same way. All of these different religions, different sects, different denominations, whatever, are different interpretations of the world, or the way we, or the way someone interprets the world. And I also, at this point, would like to stress that I view religion as a group phenomenon, but I believe that faith is a completely valid thing for each person to have, and that's where I think my break with official Christianity, or official Catholic Christianity, was the fact that that it's I that's at least a feeling I got, that it sanctions, or it talks down to personal interpretations of God, or personal connections with God. And I personally do not have a problem if a person feels like what they are doing, what they are feeling, what they are thinking is connected to God, is connected to some higher power. That's, I believe, it's a highly individualistic thing, faith, and by extension, religion. So religion should be based on personal faith.
Yes, no, there's a lot to go off of here, and I do want to go down a couple trails. But before I do that, let me ask you. So, you identify as a Christian, but as sort of culturally, as a cultural phenomenon, and for you, you don't really find yourself identifying as, say, a devout follower of Jesus, in the sense of what's written in, say, the four Gospels. And forgive me if I'm misspeaking here. So let me ask you, though, as someone who does see the value of religion, do you think that a God exists? So let's say that Christianity is false, and we could say other world religions are false. Maybe they don't line up historically. Do you think that, given that so many people, though, however, do believe God exists, do you think that there is a creator of the universe that, say, started everything that we, come to see today?
Personally, I don't believe in God, or that any higher being or higher power exists.
Okay.
But like I said, I do respect if other people believe a God or Jesus or any other higher being exists, and I just view these beliefs as completely valid justifications or explanations for the world. Like you said, do I believe that a creator was the one that created the world? No, I do not believe that's how the world started, or the universe, or life itself started. But I do not know how it started, and I am okay with that. I am okay of not knowing everything, and right now I am okay with not believing in a God. But as a disclaimer, like I said, I respect and totally understand if people and why people believe in God. And I also believe that if I were in a situation where I would need an explanation or some spiritual help or some psychological help from a higher being, I would probably believe. Or for instance, if I were in a war zone, minutes or seconds away from dying, I would probably start to believe, or at least hope to believe
Yes.
in
Okay.
what is
So
right,
okay,
if you understand what
there are
I'm
a lot
saying.
of ways we could sort of continue on. So it sounds like you're open to the idea that there is a higher power, and that if your life circumstances were to change, maybe how you view the world might quickly evolve depending upon the circumstance. Like you said, if you're in a war zone or something. um, so let me ask you: is it what would lead you to have that uh, evolution of your belief so quickly? I mean, so if you're of the current position that there's probably not something out there, there's probably not a God, what would cause that shift? Why wouldn't you continue thinking, oh, there's probably not a God and I'm about to die, you know?
Well, from the position that I am in now, I think that, well, maybe I would not believe in a God because of all of the things that I already know now. So how religions, most religions became or came into being or started to exist,
Okay.
and why. Yeah, sorry.
No, yes, go ahead, continue.
Yeah. But I cannot predict how I would react in that situation. And from what I know, or from what I've read, I can expect that in such a dire situation, when my life would be in peril, I might be clinging on to something that might save me. But right now, I am still confident in saying that no, I would still not believe in a higher power, or that if I would start to pray, for instance, I would view it as fake, as faking, as being artificial, not out of being arrogant or something, but because I don't really
Yes, it would
actually
be something
believe
like,
it, if you understand.
uh, let's see, how could I maybe try to help here? If you were to pray, it might be because you, as a someone who was born in a Roman Catholic upbringing, you know, it's sort of instinctual for you, because you were raised to do that sort of thing. Is that fair?
Back to the roots, yeah, so to speak, to go back to what I was brought into, even though I should say that I wasn't brought up in such a highly um, faithful, no, not, yeah,
Devout or religious home.
oh, yeah, devout family. So it was just something that was part of life. It was just an obvious thing. You go to church on Sundays, and it was just basic things that you would do in ordinary life.
And I want to move back to something that you said, Maslow said. And I believe you said this, and I don't know if it's a quote verbatim from him, but it's something close to all of history is story. And this idea that, well, the historians are indeed giving us their perspective on the states of affairs that happened. But my worry is that there is maybe too much skepticism in that statement. So even if history is story, there's still truthfulness to the story. If it turns out that what the historian says is true, and because sometimes historians will write things that are not true. And so would you say that even if history is story, that some stories are true or partially true or false? I'm not sure if you can see me, but I've held up my fingers on the 3 points there.
I can't see you, and I just need to hold that thought because I need to let my cat in, or our cat.
Sure.
So yes, it's true that, now let me just let it through another door, because this is like a living space for this cat. So yeah, I think so. What I think Maslow was trying to say was that yes, indeed they are stories, but they still need to be, because they are historical works, or because it's historical works. They still need to be based on facts, based on evidence from history. So it's like material evidence and the like. So they still need to be based on evidence, but this is like just one fact, and then there's another fact. The way you connect the two facts is the story. So you can connect two facts to two different things that happened in a variety of different ways. You can make it sound very positive. You can make it sound very pessimistic. You can make it sound unimportant or highly important, or you can make a story out of two facts or a story out of a million facts, if you get what I'm saying. So they still need to be based for a historical work to be a historical work. They still need to be based on some facts. The way you interpret them, the way you weave a story through them, is the story. Is why why Maslow says that all history is story, because there is no one clear line, one clear story that existed in the past. There was just a million different facts that, like I said, you can weave a story through, if you understand what I try to say.
Yes. So, but would you say that in spite of the different stories that may be out there, or the different histories, that we could still come to knowledge about what happened in the past?
Yes, we can definitely know things that happened. This is my personal way of understanding the past, is that we can know things that happened in the past, but each person has their own story of what happened or how it happened. We can see this from if two people saw one event, each one is going to describe it at least a bit differently or totally completely differently. Some will omit some facts unintentionally. One will fixate on another fact. So these differences in stories definitely come up. It's unavoidable to come to different stories, because like I said, there is no story there is no one book of history that we can open up and read through. I mean, even if I'm a bit bold to say, yeah, even if even the Bible was created in I don't know, what was it, in the beginning of the Middle Ages. So like, what was it, in the 300s or something like that? It was, so to speak, manufactured.
Yes, there are. Yes, if I'm understanding you correctly, I think you're trying to communicate that the Bible as a collection of documents was put together during the 300s, and there's some evidence that it was based on Christian church leaders, that they had their own, for lack of a better word, own versions. Some omitted some books of the New Testament, whereas others, had others. But I do like what you said about the different perspectives. Yeah, there is not one history book above all history books, in the sense that there's one that has 100% perfection about everything that's ever happened. And so we're just left with what we have, with what historians have left us. And also, when I think of the Gospels, so Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the New Testament, they are 4 different portraits, or at least what I would consider a historical biography of the person of Jesus. And to your earlier point, that they do come from a different perspective. Each has something they wish to emphasize about who Jesus was. And they use certain words, language to describe their perspective. And but for me, I don't. I think that certain documents, whether they be the Gospels or something else, if people are debating over, say, World War II events, you may have those different perspectives, but I think we can still get to the truth of the matter. I think we can, based on the data or the evidence that we have, sort of make our best judgment about what we think really happened. And would you say that's probably fair? So given the evidence we have, we should make sort of the best judgment. Is that something you would agree with me on?
I mean, definitely, because I think people are I wouldn't say made, but they are they like to, and me myself included, we like to make sense of things. That's why also before I was saying that if I were in a situation, I would probably believe in God, and people need to make sense of things, and that's why definitely I think it comes almost inevitably that out of some fragments we try to make a story. It doesn't matter what kind it is, and it definitely differs from a person to another, but we definitely, I think, need a narrative or a complete look.
Okay, so you would say that so we can come to knowledge of history, maybe not perfectly. I think you and I are in agreement there, not perfectly, but nevertheless we still can come to knowledge about what happened, whether that be World War II or some event that happened in the 1200s. Just with the evidence that we have, we try our best, right? We try our best. So if I were to say, are you familiar with are you familiar with the worldview of Mormonism, or what's called formally the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Have you heard of that?
I've only heard, but I know nothing to say that I would I know anything about. So no, uh, consider me a total um, uh, let's say non-knowable person on
Sure, that's
these.
the kinder way of you know. Yeah. Okay. So this religion makes certain historical claims in the Book of Mormon. That's one of their holy books. And in the Book of Mormon, it talks about an ancient battle that took place here in the Americas, and between two massive, large people groups. And the trouble here is, well, there are multiple troubles, but one is a total absence of archaeological evidence. There's also a total absence of ancient historical documents, manuscripts, or anything of the sort, a sort of a timeline of histories. So for someone like yourself who's interested in how religions can develop over time, this one seems to have been created, almost overnight by a fellow named Joseph Smith, who many Mormons believe is the last prophet, or sorry, not the last prophet, but the prophet who restored the church of Jesus Christ. So I bring this example up because, I know you said that faith is a valid thing sort of to each person, but I tend to think otherwise. I'm almost of the position that, well, some religions are just false. And in fact, I think almost all of them are false. And then for me, I'd say except for one. And you might go one further and say, oh, I just think all of them are false. But you mean, at least in our conversation thus far, you haven't said that they're false, but rather that it's just sort of not for you. It's good for other people. Would you say that you think of all the world religions that are out there that they're just all false, or maybe are some better than others, or some closer to the truth than others? What are your thoughts on my comments there?
Well, I think you're close to my point, but I wouldn't use the truth as a guiding point, and I personally wouldn't call religions false or true,
Okay.
or historically accurate, or however I would like. But that's because like I said before or earlier, I still do have respect to other religions, and the point where I draw my line is when it comes to hurting other people. When you force your view of the world onto others, and if that means discriminating others, of putting others in a lesser position, or even condemning them to death, that's where I draw my line, and that's where I say that religion is not justified. Personally, because I much more respect, or I much highly view life, and the right to live, or the right to live your life your way, than just to be forced into a, for instance, slavery, or forced obedience, or whatever, just because speaking just because like a book said it.
Yes, I do, and let me say as well that I'm in agreement with you that there are certain boundaries, ethical, socio boundaries that should exist, and I certainly think that Christians, especially for someone like yourself who studied European history, that Christians have used religion to justify going to war, for example, and that that is not a representative of, say, what it means to follow Jesus. Sometimes people will abuse religion for their own selfish purposes or their nationalistic purposes. And I think that's a shame when it happens. So I certainly understand. I hear you and I understand you when you share that concern that, you sort of have that moral boundary there. And I'm in agreement with you. So I think we've only got a few minutes left, looking at my clock. There are so many other questions I'd love to ask you, but we're short on time. I did have a note here sent my way, and we'll just have to do it briefly. So I was suggested to maybe bring up politics. So as we sort of shift from talking about Christianity, I know you're in Slovenia, and what do you make of the Ukraine-Russia situation? What are your general views on politics? Maybe this will just start enough, and our schedule will have to set up another blind interview. I guess it wouldn't be as blind then.
Precisely, it wouldn't be as blind, and we could probably have like a couple of meetings about politics and
Sure.
all of the other things. But to be as short as possible, I think I personally view the Ukrainian war, or the war in Ukraine, as a big tragedy for everyone, and it's tearing me apart that so many people are suffering on all sides. I'm talking about all sides, even the Russian soldiers that were forced, or a lot of them that were forced to go to war. And my heart is tearing itself apart because so many people are dying because a lunatic decided that this part of land belongs to Russia because, according to his story, this part of land belonged to Russia, which was technically not the same Russia that's today. So you see a lot of different problems in his viewpoint, but that does not concern the person I'm talking about, because he has power, and that is, if I connect this point with what I talked before, that is why I am so highly skeptical of all of these different ideals or ideas that we should sacrifice everything and discriminate everyone in the name of these things. In this case, it would be Greater Russia, or whatever the president has in mind.
But so even for you, though, you would say that while he is justifying things in his own mind according to his story, your story, though, the way you interpret the affairs, are not on the same. I mean, maybe you'd say this. You wouldn't say they're on the same equal footing, right? It's not like, one person's story versus another. You would say that what you think he's doing is wrong, and that his story is inaccurate. Is that fair?
Sort of, yeah. Because I wouldn't say inaccurate. It's just also to connect a lot of things we talked about before. So yes, the fact is, some places of Ukraine were once in under the Russian Empire.
Yeah.
But this is only a fact. What you make of this is another story, is another thing, and this is where the problem arises. If this fact would be used to, for instance, grant minority rights to the people there, so that everyone can enjoy living in a place they were born in under their own conditions. For instance, if they need to speak Russian in a Ukrainian part and such, if this fact would be used for this, no problem for me. If it's used as a justification for war, which entails sending people there, people dying for this, yada yada, the whole world basically is suffering because of this, because of also economic consequences. Then, in my view, that kind of story is at least not justified, or it's not. There's better alternatives to this story.
Good, I like that. So you'd say that there's a better conclusion that we should draw based on our interpretation of the facts.
Yeah. So, sort of along those lines, yeah. Or at least that these facts can lead us into a better, or can tell us a better story that would bring more people, let's say, a better life than another story.
Okay. Yes. Again, I know we're limited on time, but I really like the way that sort of maybe we've come to a close here. I'm very much with you on that there is a better conclusion we can draw from the historical facts. And bringing it back to our previous discussion about Christianity, that's one of the reasons why I'm a Christian, is because an evangelical Christian, is because I think there are historical facts about Jesus's life, and that I think the best interpretation of those facts is that he did rise from the dead. And I know that may be such a foreign concept for someone such as yourself, given the other things you hold. But yeah, I would just encourage you to perhaps investigate the Christian claims of the historical facts. There's an interesting argument called the minimal facts argument, and I'd be interested to maybe send you some materials, resources, and maybe we could talk about it on another semi-blind interview.
I would like that. I mean, it's always interested the early medieval times, especially the beginning of the church and the beginning of the first few empires and kingdoms in Europe has always been a very interesting theme in my book. So I would very much be glad if you can give me or send me the material, and I would be glad to take a look into it.
Great. Yes, we will definitely send you material. In fact, I'll get your address from Dante if you can communicate that to him. So, Ine, let me say this has been a fine pleasure for me. I've enjoyed getting to learn about you and your interests and how you think about history and your beliefs, and even just very briefly a little bit of your interpretation of certain political events happening right now. And perhaps Dante will think, hey, let's do another, and I'll come in unprepared, so we'll have to figure, how else and what else to discuss. So thank you for your time and for staying up. I don't even know what time it is in Slovenia. What time is it?
It's currently 8 in the evening.
Okay.
It's not that late, so it's okay.
Good. Okay, now let me ask you, so what did you think? So this is part of my template here. What did you think of this interview? This is the first one we've done. Have you enjoyed the conversation?
Yeah, I liked it. I was really glad when Dante. That's you?
Hello, good to see you. Yeah, Chris has turned the monitor so I can see you now.
Nice to meet you in face-to-face as well.
Yes, likewise.
Yes, I really enjoyed it, and like I said, I'm really glad that Dante reached out and set up this meeting. So I think it's a great idea. It's very thought-provoking. So that's kudos and great idea, and I really hope you continue with these kinds of interviews.
Great. Thanks, Ine. It's been great to meet you.
Great to meet you as well.
Have a good evening.
You as well. Bye.
So, how do you think he did? Was Dr. J challenging enough? Was he winsome enough? Agreeable enough? Did he get far enough along in the conversation? Did he leave enough bread trails just for his guest to go deeper if he really feels compelled? I'll leave that up to you. Let us know in the comments below. Please subscribe. We're trying to grow Veracity Hill, and your subscription by pressing that subscribe button really helps us out. And also, if you haven't already, check us out on apologetics315.com. Thank you. See you. Oh, and before I forget, next week, we're going to have Dr. J do a reaction video to a TikTok video. We just knew Dr. J had to respond to it. So come back next week for that response video.